As Jesse said, how many of you are happy to be in the house of the Lord? If you have your Bibles, I want you to turn to Matthew, the 9th chapter, and we're going to just read this one verse, verse 37. Before we get started, I want to give honor where honor's due. I want to thank Pastor Bernard for allowing me to step into this pulpit and give what God's laid on my heart. I don't ever take it lightly when I'm asked to speak, because I carry what God's given me and I hold it dear to my heart. I don't think that anything that He gives us is by chance, and I don't think anything that He gives us is by circumstance. There's a purpose and a reason for everything, and it's to touch somebody's life. And every time that God gives me anything, it touches me first. Matthew chapter 9, verse 37 says, "Then saith He unto His disciples, The harvest truly is plenteous, but the laborers are few." Now we've heard that all our lives. That's the only, you sit down, that's the only one we've got. You've heard that all your life, and I've heard that all my life. But when God gave this to me, He gave it to me in a little bit different context. I'm sure you probably never heard it exactly this way. When you think about this, how many of us are really willing to labor for the harvest? What is the harvest? A lot of times it's our breakthrough. But are we willing to work for it? We think God ought to just bring us everything we ask for on a silver platter with a golden spoon, feed it to us. And we don't have to do anything, but just sit there and eat, get fat. Because we feel like we're privileged. And we are privileged in the fact that we are children of God, and that He's our daddy, and He's going to take care of us. But there's some things we have to do sometimes. We can't just sit back and say, God, you do it, and I'm not going to do anything, because it just doesn't work that way. If you're not interested in helping yourself, why should God be interested in helping you? There is a harvest to be had. The question is, how badly do you want it? You got to work and be willing to work, to labor for the harvest. Anybody that's a mama in here can tell you having a baby is labor, it is work. You don't just go in there and pop them out and no pain, no nothing. You just don't know how to ever work that way. If you're in a physical job, you know, I'm sure Jesse doesn't just go up there to the railroad and just go sit in the conductor's office and prop his feet up and say, okay, trains, you do whatever you need to do. Don't break down, because I don't have to do anything today. And if you do break down, it'll be a piece of cake to fix that. I don't have to work hard to do it. Pastor goes out on these gas line breaks and all this kinds of stuff. Well, that's nothing. There's no physical labor to any of that. Carlos worked in the mines. Piece of cake. No, not at all. There was physical labor involved in those things. And when you have physical labor on a job, you're going to work. When God gave me this message, He gave me a vision. And I want to share that vision with you so you can understand where I'm going to with this. I saw this plowed garden, and the man that was, or whoever was plowing it, didn't just run through it one time with the tiller and then put that away and start planting. He went over and over and over that ground until that ground was soft and pliable and ready for the seed to go into it. It was work to do that. This person that was doing that had sweat, because there was work involved. After it was plowed, then it was disc to make it even smoother. Then it had to be healed up and the rows be made so that when the seed was planted, it could grow. And guess what? Once they planted the seed, it didn't just lay there. It wasn't dormant. It started growing. It kind of started springing forth and breaking through that ground. And then it started to grow and to strengthen. And I want you to remember those two words, grow and strengthen, because that's going to be the key in this. We're supposed to be the same way. God plows our hearts when He saves us. He takes what's hard, cold, stony, rocky, and He plows all it up and gets. You can't plant ground. You can't plant seeds in grounds with rocks. It doesn't grow well. So God removes all of that junk out of us and puts that heart into that same kind of a fertile ground when He plants the seed of His Word in us. And He also plants the seed of His will for us. And He has desires for us. Jeremiah 29:11 says He knows the plans He has for us. And when Samantha come in here with that shirt on, I was like, thank you, God. But you know what? He can have all the desires that He wants to have for us. He can have every kind of plan laid up in heaven for us for the rest of our lives. And unless we are willing to allow that plan and that seed to grow in us, He won't do a thing. God's a gentleman. He's not going to just come up here and knock you in the head with a hammer and say, you are going to do what I say you're going to do, what I've got planned for you. God doesn't like it. He said, this is my will for you. Are you willing to work for it? Are you willing to accept it? That choice is ours. God will not force you into anything. Don't ever let me be fooled with the fact that somebody says, God made me do this. God does not make me come to church. God does not make me pray. God does not make me read my Bible. God does not make me want to sing. God doesn't make me do any of those things. Those are His desires for me to do that. And because I love Him and I have a relationship with Him, I want to do those things. So I'm willing to let the desires He has for me work through me. If we don't push through the hard stuff, guess what we're going to do? We're going to rot and die. Have you ever seen a seed starts up and then it just can't get through that clump of dirt that's too hard or whatever? It'll turn yellow and it'll just wilt down and it just dies because it can't get through that junk. It's not strong enough to push through. If the root and the stem are weak, you will never produce the fruit. Same way in us. If our root, if we're not grounded and rooted in the foundation of good word and good seed, hearing it and going into us each and every time that we come to church, we're going to die. Yes. We're going to fade away. We're going to just fall off to the side, and we're going to be of no use to anybody, including ourselves. God intends for us to grow fruit, but we have to be strengthened in order to grow. Just like that plant, you got to water it, you got to kind of love on it a little bit and pat it around sometimes. But you got to make sure that it's going in the right direction. The same way as Pastor Berger does with us. I'm sure there's a lot of times that he probably thinks, well, I could have had any other job but this. But you were chosen. Sorry. But we have to understand that in order for us to grow and be of any benefit to produce fruit to help somebody else, we have to be strengthened. We can't just go out here on our own and say, oh, I got this. I don't need you, God. I don't need you, brother. You want to pray for me? Well, that's all right. I really don't need it right now. Just come back in a couple of weeks and check with me. No, it don't work that way. We need each other. In Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter, in the 1st verse, it says, to everything there is what? A season. A season. Everything in our life is about seasons just as well. Seasons are inevitable in each one of us. And just like the earthly seasons, guess what? Our seasons change. They don't just stay where they always were. They don't remain the same. And really, who wants them to? I don't. I don't want my season to stay, God forbid if it stayed where I've been sometimes. Amen. I want to just move forward. I want that season to change so I can walk through that and I can become strengthened. Guess what? Every time we go through a season, good or bad, it's to strengthen us. Yes. We can't let the bad seasons tear us down and cut us off from the root. It won't work if you do that. If you're where you're at a year ago, guess what? You're not growing. You're still in the same little spot you were. You're still on the little story of Noah's Ark. I'm serious. I mean, this is what God gave me.
Yes, come on.
And you're content with being there. You're not growing. I hate to bust your bubble, but you're just not. I don't feel like anybody in here is on Noah's Ark, by the way. God's plan is constantly moving forward. It is never regressing. And God's plan is never complacent or satisfied with where you are in the present. God sees so far ahead that we can't even imagine. There's no way we can see what He sees for each and every one of us. But just because we're comfortable here doesn't mean we need to stay here. Because that's not God's plan. Now you say, well, how do you know what God's plan is? I don't know what God's plan is for you. I have enough trouble trying to keep up with what it is for me. But you know how you find out what God's plan is for you? You ask Him. If you don't have a personal relationship with God, a one-on-one, you're never going to know. And I encourage you, if you don't have that relationship, you better be finding it. You better be getting one. It will save you a lot of trouble in the end when you ask. It's like I said a while ago, you don't just jump out there and do things on your own. You better be getting some direction. We should be constantly reaching for higher levels in God. And I've heard this for the last 20 years probably. Oh Lord, I don't want to go to another level, because if you get another level, you get another devil. And I just fought so many devils, I just can't do that no more. Bless your heart. You just stay right where you are. I want every level God can give me. And you know what? I realize those devils are going to come along, but guess what, Jesse? I've fought devils all my Christian life. And guess what? I fought them all in my sinner's life too. So it ain't no big deal. It's no big difference. I had to fight them when I was a sinner. I just didn't know I was fighting them as much. And I haven't fought them as hard as I have since I've been a Christian. But I had to fight them all my life. So it's no big deal. God will never, ever ask you to do anything that He will not equip you to do that job. He will give you the strength and He will give you the courage to stand up and to do it. Are you willing to miss what God's got for you just because you don't want to fight for it? I'm not. I looked at that, and when that question was asked, he said, I see the whole picture of every individual, the potential and the power of the plan that I have made for them. And I thought, wow, what if God had decided to just quit after He made the heavens and the earth? Or if He just said, well, that's enough. Well, maybe I'll make a man and a woman. I bet He was sorry for that. But I'll do this and I'll make some animals, but I think I'll just quit there. No, He didn't do that. God is never incomplete in anything He does or anything He does in us. He continued to progress until the plan was done, creating everything that was needed for the plan to be fulfilled. And that's why in Genesis 1 and 31 it says that God saw all that He had made, and guess what? He saw that it was good. He said it was good. We're the ones that messed all that up. You think God never had to battle the devil? I believe it's right there in the beginning that it says He kicked Lucifer out of heaven. If you don't know that Lucifer is the devil, well, you just learned something. If you do know that, then we know that he had to battle the same. The devil was going to come up and say, hey, I can do all that you can do, just as good. And God's like, yeah, right. We need to do what God did. We need to send him packing. We pat him around, we bring him up like he's our little best friend, and we hold his hand and we take him with us everywhere we go, Pastor. Well, come on, honey, I'm out of the bed now, let's start. You come with me and you tell me what you don't want me to do for God today. And you pat him on the head every now and then, feed him a little bit of sugar and hype him up so he can really get cranked. That sounds stupid. It is stupid. But we're guilty of it sometimes. You know why? Because it's so much more comfortable not to fight with the devil. It's just easier just to kick back and say, well, I'll go to church. The devil, I don't care if you come to church. The devil ain't even really trying to keep you out of church. Because guess what? He's usually sitting on the back row. Seeing what you going to do. Well, when she leaves now, tonight, she's going to go home and I'm going to lambaste her. I'm going to get him for what he did. But see, he really doesn't even care what you do. As long as you don't do it very well, or you don't do it very long, or you don't do it very much. Our problem is that we entertain the devil instead of kicking him to the curb where he belongs. The word says that Jesus, where was he? Under his feet. We have that same authority to put him in the same spot. We just won't do it. The other day there was a situation come up and I could feel that blood pressure just starting to rise. And I have very low blood pressure, like 90/40. And so when it gets to 120/80, which is normal, I'm stroke stage. And I could just feel myself just, and instantly, just a peace come over me. Said, I created you differently than that. You do not have to react to that situation that way. You have the authority to put the devil under your feet. All you got to do is lift your foot up and stick his head under it. And I just love stomping in my kitchen because it scares the dog to death. And she goes and runs and hides under the couch. And she looks at me like, you're kind of crazy. But we don't use an ounce of the authority that we've been given. We just stand back and we just let him beat us up, turn us into mush, wherever he wants us to be, and we never get a breakthrough doing that. And you will never get one doing that. John 1:14 says, and the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. I thought about, what if God had decided not to fulfill the plan of salvation? Have you ever thought of that? Nicole sang that song, Oh, the blood. Even in my sin, he still thought enough of me. Paraphrasing, it's not the words of the song. But he died so that I could be set free. Why is that? Because he loved us that much. What if he decided to just give us Jesus in the flesh, just let him walk around on the earth, but didn't let him die for our sins? We ever thought about what a miserable state of people we would be? Wicked, yeah. You know, he didn't even have to become flesh. God tried everything else, and the people were just as crazy to accept it. He tried the sacrifices, he tried the kings, he tried the judges, he tried everything. We want this, and God gave it to them. They still were happy. If God had only halfway done Jesus, we would be in a terrible mess. But it's okay for us just to give God halfway worship. Well, I'm tired. God will understand. I just don't feel good. I just don't really want to raise my hand. Well, maybe I'll raise it this high. But I don't want to raise it like that because I just don't feel like doing it. God, you know. God, I didn't get any sleep last night. I haven't slept for the last 3 weeks. So I think I'll just stand there and move my lips, but I'm really not going to sing praises to you. But you understand that, God, don't you? I don't really want to pray, Jesse. My eye hurts. I can't even see out of it as we speak. Lord, I'd rather just feel sorry for myself. But God, you go right on and bless me. You bring out that silver platter and that little golden spoon, and you keep feeding me, and you keep blessing me. And I'm not going to do anything but just halfway. But you understand that, God? Am I telling you the truth? Anybody that's never done that, please see me after church. I want you to pray for me. Because I've been guilty. We'll give him halfway worship. We'll give him halfway praise. But boy, are we excited to get in there and kill our brothers and sisters wagging our tongues. Honey, we'll knock you down the steps to get to you to tell you something happened. And we're excited to do that. We don't go halfway with that, Nicole. We just go all the way. Let me tell you what I heard, and then I'll add some to it. But God understands all that too, Lisa. He knows I'm still just a perfect little person. He loves me. He does love us. But he's not pleased with some of this stuff. In Acts 11 and 18, it says, when they heard these things, they held their peace and glorified God, saying, then has God also to the Gentiles granted repentance unto life. The Jewish people were God's chosen ones. What if it just stopped there? See, when I got to looking at this, I was thinking, if God had stopped at creation, if God had not sent Jesus, if God had just said, okay, I'm just going to do the Jewish people, I'm not going to put the Gentiles in there. Every time that if came up, we were in trouble. Every time. But then God gave Peter the vision of the clean and the unclean animals and sent him to the house of Cornelius, and everybody was saved in the house and received the Holy Ghost. Now, you can disagree with me, and that's fine, but my opinion is, I think we need the Holy Ghost. I don't see how people functions without it. I've got people in my family that will say, well, I'm saved. I don't need all that foolishness. Had one of them tell me it was black magic. I said, well, you just believe what you want to, and I'll just go ahead and do my little thing, and we'll see who comes out better in the end. Their lives are total chaos. Mine ain't perfect, but I'm blessed. Amen. But God saw fit to adopt the Gentiles into the plan. And because of that, we're blessed. Those are just some of the examples to show you how important it is that we continue to move forward and not regressing backwards, and to walk in the seasons when they change, to change with them, and to continue walking so that we can strive for completion in the plan. When we die to go to heaven, or taken in the rapture, whichever way it ends up being, do you want to really get before God and him say, well, you did this the first few years, and then this last few you just kind of slid by. And there was a few things in there that I really wanted you to do to really reach some people, but you were just too tired. My plan wasn't completing what I had planned for you. I fear that happening. So I want to do everything I can to move forward into the plan and the path that God has set for me. so that I don't have to hear that. That to me would be just as bad as depart from me, I never knew you. That I had not given God, the one that had shed his blood for me, sent his son to shed his blood, the authority to do in me what he will to do. When we do that, we end up in rebellion to where God wants to take us. When we settle for where we are and we never push ourselves out of the comfort zone to move forward. You ever wondered why you just want to stay in that current season? Or I've heard people say, if I could just go back 20 years, if I could just go back 10 years, if I could just go back to when I was a kid. You know why they want to do that? Because they know the outcome. They have to work for nothing. They don't know what's going to happen. They remain comfortable. The unknown's always going to be a little bit scary. Every new season is always going to be a little bit scary, but it's vitally important as Christians that we continue in a forward motion. Because I guarantee you, if you stay where you're at or you back up, the enemy's going to gain ground. And it might be ground that you're never able to recover. There is life and death spiritually in this, when you think about that. You cannot and you will not be able to recreate a particular season in your life again. I don't care how hard you try. You can never do it exactly the same way. It's impossible to do, and even if we could, it would not be feasible because we would never grow beyond that point. God is in control of our destiny, but it's up to us to be willing and obedient to his plan for us and step into it. As I said earlier, God won't leave you to walk it alone. The song we sang earlier, I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. And he never has. In all the years that I've been serving him, he's never left me alone. But you have to walk in it with assurance that he is with you and is leading you. Your harvest may be in the next season. And sometimes we're so comfortable sitting back in the last season, we miss the breakthrough because we don't want to push forward like the little seed to get to the next season. That seed doesn't just stay that little bitty tiny sapling or whatever it is that comes up out of the ground. It grows into a full bean, produces its fruit. It's plucked, picked, sent out to others, which is what God intends for us to do, to be. And then it has a season that it rests, and then it comes back and it starts the cycle all over again. And that's how God is in our life. For us to be able to reach people that God has intended for us to reach. And each and every one of us has a different person to reach. I'm not ever going to reach everybody that Jesse's going to reach. I don't work on the railroad. He has a brilliant opportunity right there to reach many people, and I know that he does. You have opportunities like none of the rest of us have because we're not in your position. Not only with your flock, but with your workplace. We all have families that need Jesus. Each and every one of us can be instrumental in producing that fruit for others. And I really like this part. It says your harvest may be in the next season, your breakthrough may be in the next season. Are you willing to stay where you are now and miss it? God has it all laid out for you and I, but if we don't step into it, what more can he do? He's already done his part. Now the ball's in our court. Are we going to play or are we just going to drop it? And if we're determined that we're not going to play, why are we going to get mad at God when it's our fault that we're the slackers? God ain't a slacker. Sometimes we are. Like I said, I've been guilty of some of these things through my life. God always speaks to me first. He picks on me. It's not just so I can get here and stomp on your toes. My toes get beat on too. But it's okay. I'm going to give you a little scenario. I want you to think about this. One thing he's telling me, he says, don't expect your harvest overnight. It has to mature, just like the plant. It goes through the season. But there's a time to know that you're ready and ripe, and that's the time to move on to the next phase. I'm going to give you a little scenario, and I want you to see if it rings a bell. I'm almost finished. Our life seems to be going nowhere. So we go and give God this half prayer, and we ask, oh God, give us an answer. And He graciously gives us an answer. And tells us what direction to follow. But we decide we're going to wait for a better answer. You ever done that? So life continues right on, status quo, and we get mad at God because we can't seem to find a way out of the rut that we're in. Because we refuse to go in the direction God's leading us. He says, quit blaming me for your rebellion. He's not the one that's in rebellion, people. We're usually the ones that's doing that. And we need to quit acting like it's His fault that we're not growing and moving forward. What is your harvest? What are you looking for in God? You can have anything. Just ask, and it shall be given. But you have to move. You can't just do it just sitting there like a bum on a log. Who is in your harvest? Who can you reach with your breakthrough? The whole thing for the next season is going to take commitment. Sitting on a pew, taking up time, just because it's an obligation is not commitment. Our definition of commitment in Webster's is two totally different things. Because a lot of people think I come on Sunday mornings and I never come again the rest of the time, but I did my part. My name got checkmarked. Sunday morning I was there. God's so happy with me. Commitment in the Webster's is the act of trusting. To commit is to give in trust or to consign, to yield in trust. You notice that same word just keeps reappearing each time. And God gave me the little, I don't know what it's actually called, the thing where you take the letters and you have a little thing that goes with it. What's it called, Lisa? You know, like fear was false evidence, appearing real. Well, trust is totally relying upon the Savior's test. Because God will test us. If you don't believe me, go back and read about Abraham and Job. He tested his people. To truly commit to God and to walk in His plan is to trust Him and yield to Him and His season for you. Commitment is the act of trusting, plain and simple. You trust God that He knows what is best for you, and you trust that He has it under control. He will not lead you without equipping you for that season. You yield or give yourself, submit fully to whatever He wills for you in your life, and you do it because you want to obey Him, you want to please Him, and you want to grow closer to Him, not because He makes you do any of those things. And you want to have a more intimate relationship with Him. We should be excited about the next level that God has for each of us, instead of trying to keep from reaching it. I've seen people that have exhausted themselves, and it would have been much easier to have just committed to it instead of being committed themselves. Because it drove them crazy because they wouldn't commit to what God asked them to do. You have to understand that God has control and authority over all the universe, and that includes you and I. And what He says we should be doing and where we should be going is always the right direction. I have 3 questions. When I ask you the 3 questions, the altar's open. If you answer Yes or you can answer yes or no. Doesn't mean you're not saved. Doesn't mean you're not going to heaven. Doesn't mean any of that. These are just how willing are you to work for the breakthrough that God has for you. And are you wanting that next level that He has for you? In this season of our lives, we have to seek the breakthrough that we need and move to the next level that God's taken us into. First question, are you trusting God fully in the season you're in? Now, I can't tell you yes or no. I only know my answer. And there is no wrong answer. Number two, are you like the seed that's still trying to push through the hard stuff? Or number three, are you like the stem? Maybe you're a little bit shaky from the winds of life and you're not as strong as you used to be. Maybe your seed's just been uprooted and replanted and it's taken a little bit longer for the harvest to come. But all this can change tonight if you want it to, because breakthrough begins with you. Okay, we just want to put some music on.